Sinnoh is often considered the Pokemon region to look at when thinking about myths and legends, but Unova knows a thing or two about them as well. Not only did it quite literally introduce a whole slew of legendary Pokemon, the centerpiece trio of Reshiram, Zekrom and Kyurem continue to be shrouded in mystery to some extent to this very day. And the latter specifically is one that has always intrigued me a whole lot. Kyurem is, from a lore perspective, one of Pokemon's most interesting creations, from playing around with unreliable narrators to still not being totally clear what its origins really are. And as if that wasn't enough, the location associated with it, the giant chasm, truly is a masterclass in environmental storytelling. But we'll get to all of that in a second. Because if you're intrigued by myths and legends as well, then this is a game you really want to check out. Raid Shadow Legends is a name we've all heard of, and you probably already have certain pre-notions about it, so did I, until I started giving it an honest shot and came to realize it's actually really good. It's fun, it looks great, unlike some games I know. And it's surprisingly beginner friendly, and if you're familiar with Pokemon, which a little birdie told me you might be, you're already halfway through understanding the basics. And now there's even a way to get your hands on a legendary champion after only just downloading the game. That's like starting Scarlet and Violet with a Koraidon or Miraidon you can actually use. This is Son Wukong, the Monkey King, a really strong champion you might be familiar with because he has the same character origins as Infernape. You can get your hands on it as a new player by downloading the game through the QR code on screen now, or by following my link in the description and the comments only, and filling in the promo code Monkey King during your first 72 hours of registering. Via my link only, you can even get some other powerful champions like Drake right away and Tagoar at level 15. In addition, there are even more promo codes for new and existing players found in the description. And if that all hasn't convinced you, I do want to mention that if you're a loyal viewer on maybe not even just Pichupedia, but also my other channels, this is a perfect opportunity for you to support me without having to spend a dime by clicking that link and giving Raid a chance. You can even find me under the name Pediaman and join my clan, the Pedia Gang. So give it a try, don't forget to redeem your promo code Monkey King, and thank you to Raid Shadow Legends for their support. And now back to Unova, where we will begin by taking a look at Kyurem as promised. Like I said in my intro, what exactly Kyurem's origins are not completely confirmed, which in and of itself is quite unique for a box legendary. We're definitely not short on information though, the problem is more the opposite. What Kyurem is, where it comes from and how it came to be is something that the residents of Unova don't really agree on. In the first Black and White, its story is quite grim. According to the legends of Lacunosa Town, one day a large meteorite crashed down to the planet, creating the giant chasm that is located not too far from the town. This meteorite contained Kyurem, who would come out at night and eat both people and Pokemon, generally being a very dangerous threat to anyone near it. But starting with the sequel, Black and White 2, a new theory about Kyurem's origins emerges and heavily conflicts with this story. It's now said that when the original dragon, which was set in Black and White 1 to be a former fusion between Reshiram and Zekrom, split up, it actually separated in three. Reshiram and Zekrom as the two balanced halves, and Kyurem as the empty husk that remained behind in the giant chasm. These stories can't both be true. That much is obvious. Kyurem can't have a completely different story from Reshiram and Zekrom and then also be part of the same original dragon. That just doesn't make any sense. So let's look at the evidence here, beginning with probably the easiest one to prove, the original dragon theory. Case in point, Kyurem can actually fuse with both Zekrom and Reshiram to create new forms, as I'm sure you know. It's even said in the original dragon myths, as they appear in Black and White 2, that Kyurem awaits a body of truth and a body of ideals to complete its own, which very obviously refers to fusing with both Zekrom and Reshiram to return to its former glory, showing that yes, what the DNA splicers do is not new, it's actually returning Kyurem to what it used to be. That very strongly suggests there is a clear connection between the three, further strengthened by literally every dex entry Kyurem has ever had being about either how incredibly cold its body is, which will be important later so keep it in mind, or how it hopes to complete its body once more. There has never been a Pokédex entry, not even in the games that play up the creepy aspects of Pokemon, that as much as hints to the stories told in Lacunosa Town. And yet, As far as the tales in Lacunosa Town go, everything checks out. The giant meteorite that crashed down long ago? Yeah, we know that happened. We visit the giant chasm, we know it's the impact crater, and because all kinds of wildlife and nature has made it its home, we also know it indeed happened very long ago. Whether Kyurem actually attacked the people of the village, that is hard to prove, but one thing is for certain, the residents themselves absolutely believe it. The reason Lacunosa Town has a wall around it is to protect against Kyurem, and you can visit the town at night as much as you want, you will never find anyone out on the streets. Everyone is inside, scared of a hunting Kyurem. Surely if this had all been a fairy tale, then someone, somewhere along the way, would have changed up this way of living, you'd think, right? But even in the modern day, the fear of Kyurem still persists, and while I guess that is not technically evidence, I would be willing to give the residents the benefit of the doubt and say they are probably rightly scared of something, at least. And yet, we can also deduce another thing about the town, assuming their story is correct. If a meteorite containing Kyurem truly struck what is now the giant chasm, then Lacunosa Town definitely didn't exist at the time. A meteorite that can cause a crater of this size would have absolutely obliterated the town. No doubt about it, which may make you wonder, how the hell can these residents even know all this? Are they just making it all up? Have they even actually ever seen Kyurem? Well, that we most certainly know. According to their legend, Kyurem is followed by a frigid wind and freezes everything around, which is literally the only piece of information that ties together what we learned from what I guess we'd call experts, like Professor Juniper, the Pokédex entries, and Drayden, who guards the DNA splicers, and the myths of old from Lacunosa Town. So then, if they both have substantial evidence to support them, can they both be true? Well, I'd say the answer is yes. There is a unifying theory that is never mentioned in-game and increases the number of possible origins for Kyurem to 3, but does sound like the most sensible of them all. A huge meteorite did crash down onto Unova, and did contain a terrifying Pokémon that may indeed have terrorized the people of Lacunosa Town. The original dragon itself. This way, all possible little threats have been connected. The fear that persists in Lacunosa Town would be real, and arguably even more understandable. It should also be noted that Kyurem is never mentioned by name to be the monster terrorizing the town. We also know that the original dragon coexisted with humans. The Dragon Spiral Tower is literally built to worship it, as is more evident by the Japanese name of the Pokémon, the Helix Dragon. This refers to a DNA helix, you know, the spiral shape DNA has. Not to mention, the giant chasm and the Dragon Spiral Tower share the same soundtrack, they're definitely meant to be connected. And of course, the idea that Zekrom, Reshiram and Kyurem were once one being doesn't conflict a possible extraterrestrial origin whatsoever either. There are even some more little hints that support this idea. Professor Juniper theorizes the original meteorite may have been linked to the black and white stones in some way, for example. This could very well refer to the God Stone, an item that was cut from the Gen 5 games and may have served as Kyurem's or the original dragon's equivalent to Reshiram and Zekrom's stones. It matches Kyurem in color, at least. If so, it might very well be a remnant of the original meteorite, making it all the more disappointing nothing else is known about it beyond its imposing name. We also first assumed that Kyurem was the being that was constantly followed by frigid air and could freeze everything, seeing as it's literally an ice type, whereas Zekrom and Reshiram are not. But when it begins to fuse, that ice type is retained. Black and white Kyurem have the same type as the solo one, Ice Dragon, suggesting that the original dragon possibly was also an ice type and thus would fit the icy description to a T. But I'm willing to go even further. I think that when the original dragon crashed down to Unova on a meteorite, it caused a region-wide ice age. And I have the evidence to back it up. First of all, a couple more dex entries. Black mentions that Kyurem, the husk of the original dragon, once upon a time leaked powerful freezing energy but has since stopped. According to Shield, the dex entry that can only be seen in Pokemon Home, the cellular structure of Kyurem and possibly the original dragon as a result is balanced and stabilized by freezing energy, while Sword says its power is actually bound by this cold. As such, it seems possible an overload of freezing energy is what may have caused the original dragon to be split up, such as an Ice Age. Further support can be quite literally found in Kyurem's signature move, Glaciate, or as is known in Japan, Frozen World. Come on. If that's a coincidence, it's awfully convenient. But okay, this is all maybe a little too circumstantial maybe. We don't even have evidence that Unova ever suffered an Ice Age to begin with. Or do we? Cue the giant chasm and the masterclass of environmental storytelling I was talking about earlier. Very few locations in the Pokemon series tell so much through their list of available wild Pokemon as the giant chasm does. There is a lot to talk about, and I will cover that all, but I want to start with the Pokemon that support this Ice Age theory. Piloswine and Mamoswine can be found in the wild in the grass of the giant chasm, and wouldn't you know it, both Gen 5 dex entries of Mamoswine refer back to the Ice Age. One mentions that a frozen one was dug up from 10,000 years ago, which is a reference to real-life mammoths who have been found in that state from the Ice Age. While the other mentions that when the temperature rose at the end of the Ice Age, Mamoswine disappeared in numbers. So not only is it then confirmed that Unova had an Ice Age, it's also said that the end of it nearly ended the presence of Mamoswine in the region. And yet, there are still some in the giant chasm. Curious. Every winter, the region turns into a winter wonderland, and yet this is the only place where Mamoswine and its evolutionary family appears. The same applies to Sneasel, which doesn't have a dex entry that mentions this Ice Age, but its evolved form Weavile does in a roundabout way. According to Sword, Weavile used to hunt Mamoswine, and seeing as both their evolutionary families are still around in Unova today, I'm willing to bet they were also present during the Ice Age. And currently, they too are only found in the giant chasm, despite Unova having other cold areas where these Pokemon may thrive. Delibird, Dewgong and Jynx are also exclusive to the giant chasm, but they aren't tied to an Ice Age in any way, although they too would thrive in it for obvious reasons. And there is also the Vanilluxe line, which too can be found in the giant chasm, and Vanillish has a dex entry mentioning the Ice Age, proving the Pokemon was also around back then, further supporting the idea of a Unovan Ice Age at least existing. But if only there was more evidence to tie it to the original dragon. Oh wait, there is. Because while Vanillish and Vanilluxe are not exclusive to the giant chasm, the other place where you can find them in the wild is the Dragon Spiral Tower. Both locations that are strongly associated with the original dragon, and both are the only places that house Pokemon that have been around since the Ice Age. I don't know about you, but I've seen enough to draw my conclusions in regard to the original dragon. Until we revisit Unova and Game Freak decides to throw some twists and turns into this theory, I will believe the original dragon arrived in Unova via a huge meteorite, causing a region-wide Ice Age and the creation of the giant chasm. After years of worship at the Dragon Spiral Tower and the consumption of Lacanosa Town's residents, it eventually split up into 3 separate Pokemon, which is the situation it remains in by the time we visit the region. And while that does conclude my theory on Kyurem and the original dragon, I do want to continue with praising the giant chasm some more, because like I said, there are more little lore hints to be found in its wild Pokemon than just the Ice Age. For example, the giant chasm is also a hotbed for Pokemon with extraterrestrial origins. Whether they came along on a large meteorite or are simply attracted to the area thanks to it feeling like home, I don't know, but the numbers are too large to ignore. We have Lunatone and Solrock, who have been associated with meteor impact sites since their introduction in Gen 3, Clefairy and Clefable, who have always been very strongly linked to an origin beyond the stars, and Metang and Metagross. I have gone into greater detail about this in a previous video, but to quickly summarize, there are pretty strong hints to suggest these Pokemon come from outer space, and are actually made from the same material as metal coats, which too might be of extraterrestrial origins and are often held by members of the evolution line. Both the Pokemon and the item are almost always found in the wild near meteor sites, and the giant chasm is no exception. And speaking of items, those found in a giant chasm include moonstones, star pieces, comet shards and sunstones, so take a guess why those are there. And another brilliant bit of environmental storytelling really just ties everything we've talked about today together. Because one thing is for certain, even among all the mysteries that remain with the giant chasm and the original dragon, there is a lot of pain here and a huge impact on the region of Unova. We're talking Pokemon and people eaten by monsters, the destruction of the land when a meteorite struck, a possible ice age that swallowed the region not long after, and the fall of a society that once worshipped the original dragon. And then I haven't even mentioned the kind of stuff Team Plasma pulls in the giant chasm, which includes Ghetsis commanding Kyurem impale you with icicles. And so, I find it a lovely little detail that Absol can be found in the giant chasm. The Pokemon that is so strongly associated with disasters to the point there are several anime episodes about how people hate it, thinking it causes them, when it merely senses that, I guess, disastrous energy is the way to put it. And one thing is for certain, that energy is very strong in the giant chasm, no matter what once happened there. And that's all I have for you today. What do you think Kyurem's true origins are? And how do you feel about the giant chasm's environmental storytelling? Share it in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, please consider giving it a like and subscribe to the channel to stay updated on all my future Pokemon content coming up. Don't forget to check out Raid Shadow Legends with the link in the description to support me even more, and for now, thanks for watching and enjoy the rest of your day.